listening to the Marketing Happy Hour podcast, where we discuss career and industry insights with our peers in marketing.
We're here to talk about it all, like the ups and downs of working in social media,
how to build authentic relationships in the influencer and PR space,
managing a 9-to-5 and a side hustle at the same time,
how to be productive in your life and career without losing your sanity, and more.
Ultimately, we're here to build a community with you because we're all trying to navigate the world of marketing together.
Are you ready? Grab your favorite drink and join your hosts, Cassie and Erica, for this week's episode.
This week, Erica catches up with Jack Appleby, creator of Future Social, a free newsletter read by 50,000 marketers. Jack shares his go-to cross-platform strategies and his opinion that no matter what, human stories should be at the foundation of what you post. In addition, Jack gives us his unpopular opinion about unhinged content from brands and his 3 posts per week approach for building a personal brand on LinkedIn. Of course, it wouldn't be Marketing Happy Hour without career advice. We're about to dive into an amazing conversation on social media strategy. So make sure you have your drink ready. Let's dive in.
Hey, Jack, how are you doing?
I am so great. I'm a little tired, but that's just like working in this industry, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We all understand that. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. I feel like it's been a long time coming just for me personally, following you on social media for so long on LinkedIn. You're one of the top voices I love to follow for social media. So we're excited to have you. But before we get started, I do have an important question for you that we ask all of our guests. And that is, what is in your glass tonight? This is Marketing Happy Hour after all.
First of all, thank you. That was very nice. I'm trying to drink more water, and I'm throwing money at the problem because for whatever reason, I like the sparkling waters, and I'm a branding guy, drinks liquid death. So I just have boxes of it in the corner, and for whatever reason, I will forget to drink water all day long, but I'll open 6 of these throughout the day. So I'm just doing this now.
That's amazing. Yeah, I am somewhat of a water snob over here too. My favorite is Aquapana. I don't know if you've had that one. You should try it.
I don't even know what that is.
It's so good. I don't know. It might be French. Who knows? I don't know. But it's really good. I also love Liquid Death. But actually, an alcohol-free discovery platform called The New Bar just sent over some of their summer drinks from their online marketplace. So I'm finally trying this Dissois brand, I think it's called. It's a non-alcoholic aperitif, and it is so good. So that's a space that I'm super excited to watch too, is the non-alc space, because I feel like a lot of people are moving over there. So interesting to see. But anyway,
totally.
Thank you so much again for joining us. We love your social newsletter, your Future Social newsletter, and I can't wait to dive into how you've built and scaled that. I feel like you are in a season of just building. So it'll be interesting to hear from you. But first, can you just give our listeners a peek into your background in social?
Sure. Man, it's funny. Every time I tell this story, it feels like another year goes by and I feel old. I've been working in social for 12 years now, and was even doing some of it in college before that. Got my start at agencies, got lucky, got into the industry right when social media budgets kind of became a thing, it felt like. It was 2011. And across a bunch of different agency jobs, I ended up leading social for brands like Beats by Dre, Spotify, Verizon, TV show Community, a whole bunch of video games, a bunch of tech products, just all through various agencies. Got to jump around a little bit, see what's out there. Went over to Twitch for a spell and was on their creative strategy team, worked with their influencers on the platform. And then after many, many years of doing that, I've been kind of tweeting the whole time about just advertising thoughts. With no strategy in mind. The only reason I did it was because I had been at the same agency for 5 years, and I had this crisis of, oh my God, I don't know anybody else that works in marketing except for my coworkers.
Yeah.
So I started tweeting just to meet people, and slowly built an audience doing that. It was enough where Morning Brew called me and said, stop doing the job and start writing about the job. You have the followership for it. It took them a year to convince me to do it. I was just I don't know, I like doing work. Went over there and launched Future Social with them. We built this publication around my content. Did about 50,000 followers or subscribers in about a year and a half, and with a 55% open rate, which is very high for the industry.
Amazing.
And then 6 months ago, I took it independent. They ended up not doing as much creator work anymore, and I got the chance to own it fully myself. So now I'm running my own media business, which was not the plan. It's never something I aspired to do, is run my own business. I was actually afraid of it for a very long time, and still am. But now I'm a full-time writer, speaker, and consultant for social.
So cool. Tell us a little bit more about the mission of Future Social itself. Who do you kind of serve with that publication, and how have you continued to build an engaged audience around that?
Totally. I mean, one of my core values is just kind of curiosity, which is who I am as a person. Like, I think it's why I was able to work in social so long. So I'm just fascinated by people and how they communicate and how we send messages as whether you're a brand or a person or whatever else. So with Future Social, like, I really love teaching and coaching. And I love theorizing about this stuff. I think there's not nearly enough theorizing in our industry about what could be, why things work, what might work next. So it's really meant to be an educational resource for marketers who want to learn more about social. And like, a personal goal of mine is always making the writing in a way that it's breaking down complex topics in the most accessible way possible. I want first-year social media employees as well as CEOs to get the same type of results and the same type of actionables out of the newsletter.
That's really, really cool. And one of the recent topics that you wrote about was Threads, which is what Meta recently launched. I guess it's kind of an answer to Twitter, or X as it's now called, who knows. But I'm very curious to hear, before we dive further into the conversation, just what your thoughts are now around Threads. You were like the leading voice in that area for that launch day. You released a guide for brands like the next day. So just curious to hear what you think now. Like, do you think if they continue to build upon the platform that it'll actually catch on, or do you think it's, kind of a flop a little bit?
I think it's too early to tell.
Sure.
Like, it's funny, historically, I've always written about how when a new platform emerges, be late to that platform. Don't be early. Like, don't dedicate resource or manpower or budget, because you want to see how it performs. The reason I was so excited about Threads on day one was it hit 100 million users in the first week. And that's because of that auto follow feature coming over from Instagram. It's tough. I mean, this is where I struggle with like industry media. Yeah, engagement's way down. It's like down like 80%. But this is why I think the context of these numbers is so important, is Threads engagement right now is still where Be Real was at its absolute peak. And we talked about Be Real like it was the next big thing for 2 years.
Yeah.
So do I think it's going to reach like a Twitter size? If it does, it's not going to be for a long time. And I really wish Meta had done more to onboard users and to make it stickier. Like something TikTok's done really well over the years. They threw events like the weekend concert that everyone watched, or like even like a Fortnite having the Travis Scott show that everyone watched. I wish they had thought about some like new modern retention tactics instead of just kind of giving it to us and seeing what happens. But we'll see. My advice for brands now, like what has been a month? My advice to brands now on Threads is it's worth throwing your content there and seeing what your engagement is. I know you don't get the advanced analytics that you're used to on platforms, but if the content's getting engagement, why not? Especially if you already have an engaged Instagram audience, because you theoretically have a huge percentage of that on Threads anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say, I think with my coworker, my co-host, sorry, that they might have launched it a little too early, but I think something that's really beautiful about that too is they have that platform with Adam, and he speaks directly to creators. And so he can kind of tell you, I know there's a broadcast channel where he's like sharing updates all the time about what they're doing to improve the platforms, both Instagram and Threads. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, I do. I will say, I think one of their big misses is, I know we think of Twitter and Threads as like mobile platforms, but I think a bigger percentage of the core creators use desktop than people realize.
Yeah.
So not having a browser version of Threads on day one, like I'm a huge Twitter creator. It's my primary platform. I was getting frustrated because I want to just be able to type on my computer, and that was a limiter on me using Threads.
Yeah, no, that's true. I never thought about it like that. That's interesting. Well, you do have a lot of opinions that can sometimes ruffle feathers. Threads being an example of one of those topics that kind of cause a lot of conversation on LinkedIn and social media in general. More recently, we saw your post on unhinged social media. Let's talk about that. Cassie and I both are in agreement with you that the content can absolutely go too far at times, but what's the perfect balance there, would you say?
I mean, so for anybody that hasn't read the article, I wrote a piece on how I wish we would scale back unhinged content. And there's a lot of brands do a lot of different things that have gotten pretty crazy. I mean, we're seeing like very explicit sex jokes coming from brands. We're seeing, for lack of a better phrase, bowel movement jokes coming from brands. Like I mean, brands participating in public controversies, trials, celebrity feuds, everything. To me, it's all gone a little too far. And I really wish people would scale it back for a couple of reasons. One, for being honest, you're just not going to be as good at it as the other brands. Like one of the reasons the brands that do it see huge numbers is because they go so over the top. They're so aligned with their legal teams. Like they have fully committed to this. And it's very hard to get a company to commit to that kind of approach. And I don't think most should. I also really worry that as the social media industry gets younger, like we're seeing the field blossom and grow. So we have more under 30-year-old employees working in social than ever before. I think there's a lot of people who work in social now who love social media and don't love the brands they work for. They don't love marketing. They don't love telling stories about those brands. And it's creating this like false engagement where people get all these likes on things that like don't lead to anything that would create you to become a consumer or fan. I remember during the pandemic, I watched a pro sports team tweet a Connect 4 game from their Twitter account. I'm like, how does this make me a fan of what does this have to do with anything? So that's a very long-winded way of saying, like, as far as the line goes, if you wouldn't want your kid to see it, probably not something that should be on the brand accounts.
Yeah, that's fair to say, I think. How do you think brands can test those different trends and things like that, push the envelope just a little bit without straying too far from their purpose, like you're saying on social? And we know that shock value works a little bit to an extent. How can we kind of achieve similar results with a strong strategy instead of just throwing whatever they see to the social media platforms?
I don't even want to encourage ways to try to test being in that realm because I really don't think it's the way to go. I think there's so many different personalities you can use on the internet. And we talk like you see things thrown around like social agencies, like we speak the way the internet speaks. The whole world's on the internet. There's not one type of internet user. Like, and on every social network, like TikTok's not a bunch of kids. Like the average TikTok users might be even in their 30s at this point.
Yeah.
To claim that there's only one way to speak to people drives me nuts. And it's not a binary. The choices, something I see a lot in the social media community is we want to act crazy on our account, or we feel like everything we have to do is really bland and boring. Like, no, guys, like there's all kinds of content you can do. You can be wholesome. You can tell human emotional stories. You can look up hero's journey and and how that's consumed psychologically by a viewer, why it works in movies. That can work in social media content. Casey Neistat has a vlog where he explains how he vlogs, how he always has a 3-act structure. You can apply that to social media content. It can be about human achievement. It can be funny without ever even inching towards inappropriateness. So I think the goal shouldn't be how can we get edgier? The goal should be how can we tell more human stories and human relatable tales that have to do with our product?
Absolutely. And it sounds cliche, but I guess putting the social in social media or back into social media is what you're talking about there. Like just connecting with your audience and people is the way to go versus just trying to get the most views or get the most likes on something that might be a little unhinged.
Yeah, it's almost like we've had an overcorrect in the industry.
Sure.
I mean, like I remember being like the guy who's fighting with executives where it's like just to get the social media team in the room for things. And now we see a lot of brands that are like social first in that social teams like are getting to do what they want a lot more often. They're getting to act a little wilder. It's gone too far the other way. And now we need to like reel it back in and find a way to tie everything together.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there, especially with brands that are so forward with that content. Like Duolingo, I think, is one that you had mentioned in your piece on Unhinged Social. And we actually had Zaria on our podcast, I think one of our first seasons. And I just, even from then to now, things have, gotten a little bit different on their platforms. They've definitely moved into that territory of maybe going a little bit too far now. So very interesting there to hear your thoughts, and thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay, so what has your experience building your personal brand and working on consulting projects while simultaneously growing your business? Are they all intertwined? I know you have some basketball stuff going on. You've got some speaking engagements, and you're building this business and you're sharing it all online. Tell us about that journey and what that kind of looks like for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of two phases of it. There's when I was working full-time within social, and then when I became like a full-time content creator, what I am now. When I knew I was taking the newsletter independence, my approach this year was, let's see what happens. Let's see what type of work I enjoy the most. Let's see what type of opportunities present themselves the most. And my vision was, I'm going to do brand deals for my social. I'm going to do sponsorships for the newsletter, and I'm going to do consulting, and we'll see what happens. I obviously had the social platforms for myself, had audiences of people who would directly hire me for things. The second that I announced that I was going independent, a bunch of sponsors immediately stepped up. Like, I mean, I had sponsorships that equaled last year's salary in my first month of going independent, because people wanted to work with a marketing newsletter that was written by a marketer who could convince other marketers to like check out new platforms. So it's gone so well in that regard that my focus is like building like what I'm calling a media business now. And I think we're seeing this discourse a lot more as far as like creators expanding. Like we see someone like Mr. Beast going into chocolate bars and different languages and all of the like his various businesses. More and more creators, especially B2B creators, they're really forming media businesses. So for me, like I've always really enjoyed speaking. The same thesis of the newsletter. I like talking about this stuff and educating. I had no idea if there'd be an appetite for that. And I kind of put it out there on my LinkedIn, like, hey, if anybody's got speaking opportunities, like would love to do something. Agorapulse's head of partnerships tweeted out, hey, we're looking for speakers who'd be good at this. One of my followers replied to him, what about Jack? He replies, oh yeah, we should talk to Jack. And then a month later, I was the final keynote speech at their digital conference.
Wow.
Like, so like this is where like if you build audience and you continue to show value to that audience, like they will provide and give back. Like I have not spent $1 on marketing this newsletter. I've done zero outbound. So every dollar that's come in this year is from someone organically reaching out to me over LinkedIn or Twitter to either sponsor the newsletter or do branded content with me. And I think it's just if you provide value for 10 years, like eventually like those people you've worked with, like become budget holders themselves and work in marketing jobs and want to contribute to the community.
No, that's so cool. That's so cool to hear that people that you've connected with have kind of come back and advocated for you, in spaces where you might not even have known there was opportunity. So that speaks to the power of networking for sure. One other thing that I've seen you post about is growing your personal brand, like on LinkedIn and things like that. What are some tips that you have for people who are trying to do that right now, but don't really know where to start?
So there's a structure that I like. Something I thought a lot about. Something I'm gonna probably put out some like maybe like cheap digital products around to help people do this kind of stuff. Like one of my things, like I really, really believe that everyone has stories worth sharing from day one of your career. Like if you're on the job for the first day, there's a million things that are happening to you, that you're feeling, that you're understanding, that are worth letting other people know about, because someone will relate to it, someone will learn from it. So as far as LinkedIn goes, and make no mistake, if you want to build a personal brand about your profession, don't even start with Twitter. Don't even worry about Twitter. LinkedIn's incredible. The algorithm's great. It's a healthier platform. A structure that I recommend to get started is every week try to do 3 posts. One is something that you learned that week at work. And there's nothing that's too small. It can be, oh, we tried this new to-do list app that I'm really enjoying at work. Has anybody else tried this? I like it for this reason. It could be, oh, I learned a note-taking style. It could be anything. Like I learned a brush tool in Photoshop that I never knew. So one thing you learned that week, one thing you're proud of that week. If you work in social, it might be like your top performing social post for that week, or it might be like that you put in PTO that you've been nervous about putting in, or you talk to your boss, or whatever that might be. And then a final one, someone else's work that you admire. Maybe that's a brand social post that you just thought was very clever or funny, and you just type up, put it on your, take a screenshot, put up and why you like that kind of thing. If you do something I learned, something I'm proud of, and something I admired every week, that's 3 of the 5 business days per week. And you will naturally learn what writing performs better, what thoughts to share. And even if you build a core audience, like for most people, building a personal brand is not like what I'm trying to do, where it's like I'm trying to become like an educator of marketing for a mass sum of people. For most of us, building a personal brand is about finding those 5 people that are going to give us jobs where we're going to work for 2 to 3 years. Like, and those add up quickly. Suddenly there's your 20-year career right there. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars because you just posted on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't even explain how many of the positions that I've had or connections that I've made have been because of things that I've posted or things that people have shared that I posted or things, I don't really do it as much anymore because I've been taking a little break, but I've definitely had a lot of opportunities just come to the door because of things that I have shared about my personal experiences or things that I love and things that I like. And I think that's definitely been super advantageous to my career. And I always encourage people to do that. So.
Yeah. And something I would add to that is I think we get really, it's funny. Like I know we all work in social, so we're trained to think in engagement and replies and comments and all that. Something I think that goes really undervalued, not just in marketing, but in personal branding is the people who see the content but don't engage with it.
Mm.
A lot of the most incredible things that have happened to me, whether they're sponsors who have built large campaigns around my content, people that offer me jobs, I didn't know they existed until I put out a piece of content asking for their help. During COVID, I had a layoff, my first ever layoff, and I'd never been available on the market before with no job. When I tweeted that, it did 250,000 impressions, and a woman reached out to me. She's like, "Hi, I work at Twitch. I've been reading your stuff for a while. Like, I'm curious if you're interested." I had no idea who she was,
Wow.
and she was an incredible boss. 3 months later, I'm working for her. One of my biggest presenting sponsors for the newsletter. I put on my LinkedIn, "Hey, we're looking for sponsors right now. Like, never done this before." She'd been reading my writing for years, had never commented once. So something I want to encourage people is when they look at like personal branding, whether it's on Twitter or LinkedIn, it's easy to get caught up in the people who are immediately replying to you, especially on like a Twitter where it gets very negative. Twitter tends to run on the more junior side of the industry, which is not a bad thing. Like I think everyone needs a chance to connect with their peers. But a lot of the best opportunities that came to me from Twitter are people who I didn't even know were following me and then suddenly appeared. So if you get discouraged by either you're not attracting people you think you're attracting or like certain types of negativity, the things do come back in spades at some point.
Oh, absolutely. That's so good. Okay, moving on, just because we want to make sure that we get this in here because you are the social guy, right? We have to hear your top tips for brands on social. What can social media managers be doing to succeed on each platform? I don't know if you want to be like, "Hey, LinkedIn, do this. Hey, Instagram, do this." But however you want to answer that question, give us your top tips.
Yeah, it's funny. What's been really, really great about getting away from the work itself is getting to have a more third-party view of all this stuff. Getting to do like functionally like doing more research on it. Like I get to read Pew Research Center every day now. I can like do all this homework on the industry. And I've looked at things that I've tried for the brands I used to work for the brands I consult with now, and just my personal social. There's so much that I did throughout my career that I've totally thrown out. Like, because I think at the end of the day, all that really matters for social, if you want to get high performing content that drives engagement, drives followers, and then drives like actual consumers for your brand, is understanding what makes for a compelling social media idea, which is a big concept. There's a lot that goes into that. But this is where I think brands should be spending every dollar and every hour making sure that they understand the human emotions of the consumers they want. So I started this like silly TikTok basketball account just to kind of document me as an adult playing ball. And I've obviously done lots of homework and worked in this industry for a long time. So I built a couple of content series. And I knew like that they would do some numbers, and they worked. Like I knew that the mid-30s athlete is an underserved audience. There's a lot of parents in that field, people who've gotten out of shape, and I have my own injury. So I made a series called like I'm a 34-year-old ex-college player trying to get in shape. I'm 30 TikTok followers 6 weeks from that, and my average views on that particular series are usually over 100,000. So I'm 3xing my own followers just from that content hook. Or like I play rec league basketball. I set a goal for myself up front. Like I want to try to be MVP of this league. I'm not even close. But people have followed my journey on that because I saw early and like somebody who's very true to who I am like as a basketball player and as an adult. I found like TikTok found me that audience, and I knew how to keep engaging them.
Sure.
I think all brands can do that too. So is your hook actually compelling? Is it a human story? And like, are we being honest with ourselves about how creative these ideas are?
That's great. And I think that can be applied to every platform. Like you just said, it's not really like a specific thing per platform that's going to work. It's really understanding your audience and understanding what's going to connect and understanding what's going to draw people in. So I love that. Yeah. And Jack, we'd love to ask this question on the show. What do you know now? It's kind of broad, but what do you know now that you wish you knew early on in your career?
The most important lesson to learn in your career is your career is your job. It is on you to manage your career. You may have the most wonderful boss in the whole world. They are busy, they are tired, they are stressed out, and they cannot babysit you to help elevate you or promote you or get you that raise that you want. Once you decide that it's on you, it's off to the races. Like you can do everything like on your own, and you understand how to problem solve your own career. Like a big one for me, I was just like a social strategist. I was doing very well. I was one of our top performers. I was probably like 5 years into my career. My client Yahoo bought the TV show Community. And I couldn't tell you why I decided to do this, but I was close to my client. So I emailed one of the clients and it's like, hey, just for the record, like I'm the show's biggest fan in the whole world. If there's ever a chance for us to work on it, let us know. That was not part of my role. I was a strategist. But for whatever reason, I had the confidence to do that in that one moment. I think I was just excited the show didn't get canceled. 3 weeks later, I was pitching it and I won that account for it. And I got to work on my favorite show for a year. And that was this big light bulb moment for me where it's like, you don't have to wait for other people. Like you don't have to wait for permission to go do things. The most proactive people are the ones who get paid most anyway, who get to work on things that they want to work on. From there, I ended up working on my favorite video game of all time, Rock Band. I've worked with the NBA at Twitch. Like I've touched almost every dream brand I've wanted to because I've kind of just put myself out there to go find it.
Yeah, no, that is so important for people to learn. And I think you often learn it too late, that you are your biggest advocate, you are your biggest fan, and you are the one that can power your career forward. And I think that that's really cool to hear your experience with that too. So yeah. Okay, we are reaching the end here. Where can everybody find you, follow along with what you're up to? You know, the basketball, TikTok, Future Social, fill us in. We'll put everything in the show notes so people can connect with you there.
Definitely. So the newsletter is called Future Social. If you give it a Google, you'll find it. I'm still moving it to an official website because I was more interested in making sure it got out there than doing the baseline business stuff. My name is Jack Appleby, which is a silly, fictitious name, but it is what it is. So you can Google me. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. On Twitter and LinkedIn, I post daily content about marketing and careers, and then the newsletter comes out once a week.
Amazing. Thank you so much again for joining us. This has been great.
Awesome. It was so much fun. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. We hoped you loved it as much as we did. If you enjoyed the conversation, we'd love to get your feedback on the episode. Head to the review section of your favorite podcast app and let us know what you thought. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
We are so excited to share that our first ever free Marketing Happy Hour digital resource is now available. Download the Dream Career Game Plan today at marketinghappyhr.com/freebie. That's marketinghappyhr.com/freebie. This 5-step workbook will guide you through defining your goals, building your network, diversifying your skills, influencing where you're at, and investing in your growth. Cassie and I created this resource with marketing careers in mind, but the framework can be applied to any industry. Our hope is that this workbook will help you truly elevate your career, whether you're in the market for a new position or just looking to make your mark in your current organization. No matter where this resource finds you, we are cheering you on every step of the way. So go check it out at marketinghappyhr.com/freebie to download and make your career dreams come true.